Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness, Season 5, Diasporic Journeys, with your host, India Lorick Wilmot. Good people, thanks for being on the podcast's diasporic journey through the country of South Africa. In this episode, we venture to Stellenbosch, which is about 30 miles east of Cape Town and is in the beautiful mountains and valleys of the country's famous premier winelands. For those who partake in drinking wine, South Africa is known for having some of the most delicious wines and grape varieties. Despite the diversity of wines and the predominance of vineyards in South African winelands, the industry itself is not diverse. Black-owned wine brands account for less than 1% of all South African wines. By my count, there are at least 85 Black-owned wine brands in all of South Africa, a growth of 20% since 2020. Yet when it comes to owning the land to which farmers harvest and actually make the wine, less than 3% of the country's vineyard acreage is under Black ownership. This says a lot considering that Black South Africans make up more than 80% of the country's population. This disparity highlights the endemic legacy of apartheid and discrimination for Black and colored vintners. From getting business loans and raising capital to starting a wine brand to sourcing farms to harvest and vintners to produce wine, there is still the issue of Black-owned brands breaking into the market with enough volume to attract big retailers in an already saturated and predominantly white market. Still, progress is happening, but at a snail's pace. I wanted to explore the winelands with a specific focus on Black-owned brands and vineyards. One of the oldest and only Black-owned wine farms and wine brands in Stellenbosch, to be specific, Mahudi, which is owned by the Ragenka family. From the Setswana word Mahudi, which means harvester, the name of the wine farm and brand is inspired by the great African story about our heroine, Mahudi, who fled her war-torn home in search of a new beginning. Similar to the famous tale, the name for this Black-owned wine farm and brand symbolizes strength, courage, the relentless pursuit of one's dreams against impossible odds, and the celebration of a hard-earned triumph. In this episode, I was fortunate to sit and speak with the Ragenka vintners, co-owner Baba Ragenka and his daughter-in-law Rayleigh, about the history of their journey to procure a 43-hectare wine and fruit farm in Stellenbosch, South Africa, and their participation into a lifestyle, culture, and economic sector in which few Blacks have had the opportunity to partake in previously. And of course, I'm doing all of this while sipping on their famous Sauvignon Blanc, their Cabernet and Pinotage varieties. So needless to say, it was a lovely afternoon. So take a listen and enjoy.
Give Black Alliance is proud to support the podcast Talking Journeys of Belonging to Blackness, hosted by India Lorick Wilmot. The podcast is an exploration of all aspects of our Black communities, including gifts of time, talent, and treasure, while shedding a positive light on the African descendant experience globally. The Give Black Alliance informs, reforms, and transforms philanthropy to acknowledge and partner with our communities in order to bring about equitable change for all. To learn more about Give Black Alliance, visit us at giveblackalliance.org.
Right about now.
Act 1. Call to Adventure.
This is the breakdown.
In this segment, I sit down and speak with Rayleigh Ragenka, who is the daughter-in-law and business manager for the vineyard. And as part of our conversation, I'm asking her various questions about the background of her in-laws' journey to procure the land for the farm and becoming vintners and other aspects of their operations. So how did your family get involved in being wine farmers?
Mahudi is named after a novel written by Saul Plaatje, and he was the first Black South African to write a novel in English in the 19th century. So his novel is about a woman named Mahudi, and she flees her village during war and starts a new life elsewhere. So how it relates to the brand? My in-laws left their professions in Johannesburg and decided to buy a farm didn't know what kind of farm, they just wanted land. Bought this farm, didn't realize that it was a wine farm. They saw the grapes and thought that it was just normal table grapes. And it took neighboring farmers up the road to introduce themselves, and then they introduced the family to the wine industry and winemaking. And that's how they got into the industry. So they didn't know anything about it. They had to learn, they had to go on all the different courses, and the rest is history. When we bought the farm, it had its own farm laborers.
So I think it must be something quite significant to be one of the first black
owned.
I wonder what that was like to establish that, especially just even 20 years ago when still coming out of apartheid and...
Not much has changed. Still a very challenging industry. First generation and to compete with generational wealth. We used to be in retail stores. They give you like a 5-year contract. Once the 5 years are up, then they let you go and place someone else on the shelf. So it's very difficult. We're in one retailer at the moment, but certain stores, it's not national. We used to be in many restaurants, but restaurants as well come and go.
Especially with COVID, things probably had to close down.
We used to be in over 40 states in the US when we first started, yes. But since the 2008 recession, not anymore. However, we do have an importer now, and we'll be importing to Louisiana and Georgia. We belong to 2 co-ops, and that's where, in this area, 68 of the farms here take their grapes to the co-op, the big winery, and that's where the wines will be made. With the co-op over here, we just supply the grapes, but for our wines, we have it made in Paarl.
And so in March, after you harvest, I guess, what's the process for it to get to the bottle? Put it through the different machines to crush them?
We have it fermented in tanks, so it will be in the tanks for about 12 months. Some are in tanks and others are in French oak.
Oh, so then that's how we get the nice flavor.
Yes, but then it's not new oak, it will be second or third full.
And then it stays bottled for X amount of time. So that's how we can say, oh, that was from 2020. Yes.
It's like your shilling that you're having now is a 2021 vintage.
You know, there's sometimes you'll have different types of grapes, different wines, and although it's the same type, it may taste different. Is that part of the growing that you might do something different, or is it just how the grape is doing in the soil where you may have a different taste?
It starts from the soil, and then it depends on where you are situated. Like some are on the hill where they have direct sunlight at a certain time in the morning or in the afternoon. It all depends on the white wine. We have to harvest the white grapes early in the morning because the longer it's in the sun, the sweeter it will become. It all depends on the winemaker, what kind of wine style he would or she would like to make.
Interesting.
It is. It's very technical.
And so does that mean that certain grapes don't grow in certain soil?
Yes, it all depends on the soil. So, for instance, we have 9 provinces in the country, and the Western Cape is the region for winemaking. So we can't go to Gauteng and try to produce wine there. The soil just won't allow it.
Interesting.
But we suspect that with climate change, things are changing.
As the afternoon progressed and we continued with our wine tasting, Rayleigh brought us through a journey of the vineyard's wine varieties. A few moments later, her father-in-law, co-owner of Mahodi, Baba Ragenka, joined us, and we were able to continue our conversation about the founding of the vineyard, the issues that he and his wife encountered when they were procuring the land, and how they looked to the legacy of this first Black-owned wine brand and wine farm.
Be what you want to see.
Act 2, The Road.
My name is Diale, and I'm the talking head of the family.
So your daughter-in-law was sharing with us that you felt the desire to say, well, we want to have farmland, even though it wasn't necessarily decided to do wine, but you wanted farmland. Why was that so important?
Yes, I think it was from the love of the land, the love of production. From that, growing up with production, one kept it up. Those are my best farming years because when we created apartheid, we had been distributed in a certain way across the landscape of the country. So there was not too much of a disruption of where we lived until the 50s. It was the end, I think, of black enterprise, because when the mines were being started, black people outcompeted white producers with supplying vegetables and meat and wood and all that to the mines. When these laws were enacted, we were no longer able to do so. You had the Zulus in Zululand, the Xhosas there, and the Botswana there, and took all the villages of black people that were in what they decided to make white spots, and they tracked them. She still remembers Mrs. Boss, how she was on the back of a truck with her grandfather and her mother and all that, and the soldiers were all over, and dogs, and it was very scary. Her grandfather didn't make it through the next 2 months, having been uprooted from that, and then looking at this bleak darkness ahead, and they thought he had created a home for the family. I belong to the Soto Botswana group, so the country Botswana would be my natural home, except that somebody came with a pencil and then drew lines. We ended up this side, and the guys in Botswana ended up that side. We speak the same language, have the same loss of our old traditions. When the Mzilikazi, the emperor who created the Matebele people in Zimbabwe, when he left us, the Voortrekkers, the Boers, took us up, and then there was that South African war that they say was the white people's war, and the evidence we have was that our people were involved up to here in it. And by the time they left us, a lot of what we used to do, to be, to think, had been shaken out of us. We have been cattle people all our lives. It's so difficult to be saying to my people, particularly because I've been spat out, I've been diasporized, if you see what I mean. The Sun City, that side of Johannesburg, that is where my people are. I've never actually lived there long enough. When I finished matriculation, I went to university somewhere, although I spent a lot of my time still in Botswana, in Soto area. Even now, when you say to people, cattle farmer is actually not a cattle farmer, it's a beef farmer. Beef is produced from grass. We just use animals to process the grass because we can't eat it direct. And therefore, a farmer is what we call a shepherd, if you see what I mean. You need to take care of the pasture, because without pasture, you have nothing for the animals to convert into meat.
Right.
This is a message that is still very difficult to put across. We still see ourselves as being wealthy on the basis of the number of cattle we have. I grew up then. The Native Land Act said no black people can own farms, can own any land anyway. There had been nice relationships that had been developed between black people and the white owners. Remember, it was not the first time that the white people had made a law that said black people should not have farms. The South African Republic, which is a Boer republic, started off with that law. It is important, if you want to control people, that you go to the jugular of the economy and you slice that. As soon as you cut that umbilical link between the land and the people, then you got workers. Because they've got to pay taxes. Gold had been discovered before then, if our mines are deep. So that's how we moved from working the land. The wise thing to do is let the people continue to live in their villages and just take as many as you need at a time to go and do the extraction. So that when they get sick or whatever, you've got somewhere to dump them and to get fresh. And I was just talking to my brothers here. The man who was here now with me is a Mozambican. He lives here because their country has gone the way of all these African countries. We were talking about how black South Africans have a very negative attitude to non-South African blacks. We're very intolerant of migrants. It is exacerbated by the fact that they beat us at making a livelihood, whereas we are used to saying, and of course we listened to the party Congress when it came in 1994, there shall be jobs. We are used to be given. For a longer time, they've been more independent than we and have learned and have been taught to graft, to work, to do something. We don't. We are all teachers and nurses and police and priests. And those are the professions. My brother, to go to do medicine, okay, there was a black medical school which you had to pass very well to go to. It was a branch of some white university. But he decided he wanted to become a psychiatrist, and he had to get the ministerial permission in order to be permitted to attend the white university. However, what I'm saying is that we are professionalized in our heads. Suddenly here come a people who put things together, who you can say to Paul, I've got a problem with my water system. He says, okay, I'll see what I can do. And he comes, and in 3 hours everything is working. We don't know how to do that. And they sit on the side of the road and they sell, and they know that every cent that they have made extra, that they are able to put away, at the end of a certain period becomes that number of cents that has been put away. I don't see that my people understand that. We tend to want this wealth this minute. So there has been a degradation of the education system in the country. Not as a going to school and administration of buildings and processes, but as a stimulation of thinking, of wanting to be better, of learning certain basic skills. I mean, we are told that our children can read, but there is something weird called do not read with understanding. You recognize the patterns and you pronounce the words, but you don't know what you're saying. It's mumbo jumbo. So we have a situation where the school has been severed from life. It had been bad enough all the time. I remember when I was much younger, I used to ask the principal, why is it that they had the windows of these classrooms painted over so you couldn't see? Because they said, no, we want the children to concentrate. And our argument was, you want them to concentrate on the wrong thing. In class, we are talking about what's happening out there. All they've got to do is to raise our eyes and to make the connection, and we too can say, look at that old lady doing this. This is where it links with this. Now, you have severed education from life, and you get surprised when you get rote learners of the first order who can recite everything up to PhD, but don't know why it links up with anything. This has become worse. That when I say to a person, I've got this in 90, no, I want 4 of them, and the person says, how much? And then so it's 36. I said 90, put a 0, it's 360. They're going to get help.
Right.
That road learning that taught me the times table and had my behind warmed up if I didn't do it, is helping me. Something that this is information I have in my head. I used to teach, and then I noticed that when students don't pass, the faculty board looks at me, despite the fact that I tell them that the things I am teaching don't study. And so I decided I'm going to admin. That's a good life. You've got a phalanx of officials, and if any mess happens, you can always blame that one or the other. When South Africa changed after 1994, universities were merged and different ways of running things happened. I was the chairperson of the Reenactment Hospital. And we had been doing our things normally for a while. Suddenly somebody said to me that I needed to draw up a business plan. And I was saying, wait a minute now, it's a business plan for a hospital. It's a government entity. It is funded by the government. I responded by writing a letter of resignation.
So Mrs. Boss, was she the brainchild? When you were saying, oh, what should the business plan look like? Was she the one to say...
Yes, she said, you've always wanted to go farming, so let's try and get this farm. Mandela is standing there saying that, I want black people to return to the land. And then she was saying, well, who is best able to do this than us? We've learned this, we'll learn what farming is about soon enough. And I said, let's stick to things we know, a cattle farm. So we hunted and hunted and hunted and didn't get any until we got here and found this little farm. I said, okay, we wanted a farm. There's a farm.
So your daughter-in-law was sharing that what aided in you all deciding to go towards wine is that you're part of a cooperative of 68 other farmers. And so through them, you all were exposed to not just the guava and just grapes, but you can have the Chenin, you can have the Shiraz.
And we found a group of black people, probably 7, 8, 10, already in the wine business.
And when you say they were in the wine business, were they renting the land?
They did what we learned later was the best way to do it. They went and bought wine, the juice, and then had it bottled and created brands or labels, and they operated at that level. Because we were an aberration. We were trying to buy a cattle farm, and when we didn't find one, we kept on looking until we ended up somebody saying, there's a farm down there. We accidentally pursued this idea of getting a farm until we got one, and it was this. That is why we were the only black family that had a vineyard.
That's interesting you say that that's not necessarily the best model, because we have some vineyards that we know of that are on the Western Hemisphere that are black. They say they're black owned, but they don't own the land. They lease it. So essentially they put their name, they have access to the land, the grapes are already there, they produce, they harvest, they put their name on the bottle and they sell it. But once the lease is up, now they have to renegotiate.
Yes, yeah.
But that still puts you in a worse position. I can understand the work that comes with owning the land.
Yeah.
But isn't it always better to have your own than...
Not necessarily. We discovered this idea of having co-ops, that we are communal everything until we get to entrepreneurship. And then suddenly it's me. But the land we own together, the school we own together, the money that comes from the mines. We are the wealthiest African tribe, if you prefer to call us that. We've got a king that we all recognize as legitimately in that position. And then it is, I'm going to start a business, and then suddenly people say, okay, show us a business plan, and now it's me. So I'm trying to say to them, the white people in this country became wealthy because of cooperatives. You produce the maize, what do you call maize?
Corn,
yes, yeah. You produce it, but there is a central place where you deliver this after you harvest. And that central place has a CEO, it has a maize grinder, whatever they are called, it has this and that and the other. So that's not your headache. When the maize has been processed into flour or whatever and gets sold, or it gets exported to other countries, the money comes and then there's an mini more that you all get. First you get for the corn, and then you get for the product. Same thing here. There are many co-ops here, wine co-ops. They are owned by farmers. They take their harvest and give it to that guy. We've got one Stellenbosch who has many winemakers under one CEO, and those tanks, the very costly things, than the expertise that is required. And when we deliver the grapes, we get money for that per ton. According to, if it's a Pinotage, then it is, say, $4 per kilogram. But the Sauvignon Blanc, say, in this area, somebody said it's sand and therefore maybe light and iffy. And then they take those grapes, make them into wine and then sell, but that's a higher value kind of product. Again, we get a slice of that. So they are technically in the wine business, in spite of the fact that they are busy only with production. Right. Now, flip that. I come and I've got money that I picked up somewhere, and I design a brand, I do everything, and then I go to this co-op and say, I hear you've got bulk wine here that you need to get rid of. Yes, I do. Oh, okay, let's talk. I've got this palette that I want to answer. This wine was made to prescription. It doesn't taste like this accidentally. It is made to meet the heavy palate of black South Africans, because we wanted to make sure that when they sit down and drink it, they don't think of beer or whiskey or whatever. So there's a protocol which I could give you, and if you found the same kind of grapes, even if you didn't, your product is very likely to be close to this, because it is what temperature measures, this kind of yeast that you are going to use, and this is that kind of thing. So people do that, because we then said, okay, we are virtual companies technically. We don't have the winery. You don't have none of the two. You just have these brands of yours. But when we get to the shops, you always find that product specially made and packaged from so and so. Okay, here is this supermarket, Super Value, does not have any manufacturing capacity for all these. But every time you look at the tomato sauce or something, what is specially made and packaged, it is specially made and packaged, but specially made. The idea is not to grab the juice as it is and then put it in a bottle, because then you might as well let this guy do it. Yeah. So somebody called it the virtual companies. A lot of them found sooner or later that it is better not to have a vineyard. To start off with, it's very expensive. Secondly, your neighbors are hostile invariably. They'll start smiling until you make a mistake of smelling like you are not appreciative. bit more assertive than they prefer you to be. I was brought up long ago when bringing up was happening in the black consciousness tradition. We were black and proud.
Black and beautiful.
And we're very beautiful.
Yes.
Still are. Very arrogantly. That is not wearing off. And we were going to be asserting this blackness arrogantly. We are not going to be apologetic about it. We are not going to ask for your approval. We don't care whether you like us, you don't like us. We don't hate you. We don't love you. We're indifferent to you. So you can go ahead and do what you want, but yeah. So you grow up in the tradition. It doesn't rub off very easily when, in spite of a Mandela saying, let us reconcile. We've got every right as black people to hate you and not to want to have anything to do with you. Our cultures have not designed us that way.
Get involved.
Act 3. Where we land. After spending a great amount of time with Baba Ragenka, we finally get to the place where I ask him about the legacy of Mahudi wines and what it means to be a black farmer and a black-owned wine company. So check it out. So is that your forecast? Your forecast will be that over time, that this whole area, there'll be more vineyards like yourself?
No. It is too expensive. You are going to have here and there very wealthy people buying them because it's a chip on the shoulder kind of thing. But as a practical business proposition, it is really, really easier to do what one of the biggest companies here at Estelle used to do, which is to buy wine all over the place. I am tasting this wine. If it's a Pinotage, if I had taken Pinotages from different areas, they would all show slightly differently. They would share Pinotageness. But the ones that come from a rocky, hot area would have this, and those who come close to the coast, which with this would have this. Blend that, you've got a completely different juice in your bottle from anybody else's juice if they haven't done it that way. So for me, it is at the point of blending and maturing that the winemaker's art comes out, not running after tractors and diesel and things like that, So I don't think we're going to have the money to own vineyards, but I think those who do have vineyards have to, and belong to cooperatives, have to empty those big tanks. And those tanks are big. Somebody somewhere has 10 million liters of wine standing around waiting to go somewhere. I keep saying to them, if 10% of black people in South Africa drank wine and bought it, we wouldn't have a teaspoon left to export. But no, it's more 10% of the 5% that is the wine business. So you are going to need somebody to help you empty those tanks. And it's going to look to me, for example, I keep saying to Mrs. Boss, if I were to go back to the Northwest, I would take barrels and then take tanks of wine and go and mature them and bottle them there and give them to people there. It wouldn't make any difference. They wouldn't buy them because they would want to say, wine comes from the Western Cape, full stop. But, so I don't think it is going to happen too quickly.
I very much enjoyed my time at the Mahudi farm. Special thanks to Ray Lee and to Baba Ragenka for their time and, of course, the delicious wine. Our conversation really gave me a good amount of context and some understanding about what it was like for a lot of Black South Africans post-apartheid to try to take advantage of the new access and opportunities that they would have in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of land ownership. I think a great takeaway for folks listening is to be able to consider not only just patronizing Black wines and Black South African wines, but ensuring that your favorite wine shops or restaurants, wherever you reside outside of the continent, you inform them and let them know that you're very much interested in the Black-owned brands that you've tried and that you've enjoyed to really ensure the viability of these brands. Well, there you have it. We've concluded this episode, but up next, please be on the lookout for our final stop in this diasporic journey, where we actually leave the beautiful country of South Africa and venture slightly north to the country of Zimbabwe, where I am sitting with the first Black female owner of a boutique hotel in all of Zimbabwe, Mbano Manor. So be sure to check it out. The journey isn't over, but this episode is. To catch the latest, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Instagram at JourneysB2B_podcast. Thanks for listening.